Yo, welcome back to Eat, Sleep, Breathe Hoops with your boy Nikki P, man. Y'all saw the thumbnail. Let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, hoop fans, front office critics, and truth seekers alike. Let's talk about the robbery. Not the kind that happens in alleys or banks, but the one that takes place inside luxury NBA suites, behind glass doors and beneath the banners of billion-dollar franchises. The robbery of incompetent general managers stealing millions while steering legendary franchises into irrelevance, dysfunction, and sometimes even destruction. Today we're breaking down the most horrible GMs, aka general managers, the NBA has ever seen. The worst draft picks, the most lopsided trades, the misjudgments of talent, and the shameless prioritization of business over basketball. So let's jump right into it. How these cats keep getting paid to fail. A wonder, one of the 8 wonders of the world now, huh? Let's start with the truth. Being an NBA GM should be one of the most accountable jobs in sports. You control player personnel. You control a franchise's short and long-term direction. You pick coaches. You control the cap. Your job affects the billions in team valuation. Yet, year after year after year, bad GMs keep getting recycled. Why is that the case? Because the owners care more about relationships, business, and PR than basketball IQ. These GMs climb the ladder not because they know the game, but because they know the right people. Like the old adage goes, it ain't what you know, it's who you know, unfortunately. They live in spreadsheets, not locker rooms. They probably ain't never picked up a ball and has never been considered good from any remote assumption from any player that has ever watched them play, or fan or person, period. Nobody has probably ever seen these people pick up a basketball and think they were good, unless it was a retired ex-player. They'll draft players who look great in a workout but can't survive a defensive switch. They'll sign a center who puts up 17 and 10 but can't stay on the floor in a playoff game. Let's get into the evidence. The worst draft picks in NBA history, the GM edition. Let's kick it off with the ultimate, huh? What was that moment? When the Cavs under GM Chris Grant selected Anthony Bennett number 1 overall, the basketball world collectively gasped. Not because they were shocked. It was because no one had him even top 5 on their draft boards. He had a tweener body, no elite skill, no passion, no positional identity. And what happened? He was out of the league in 4 years. That's organizational malpractice. Not sure if Chris Grant got fired after that, but he definitely should have. And who knows, maybe he didn't even deserve the job in the first place. And then on to Darko Milicic, the 2003 NBA draft for the Detroit Pistons. Joe Dumars, who deserves praise for building the 2004 championship team, still has to wear this one on his shoulders, even though he is in his own right one of the greatest players of all time, especially at the 2-guard position. You had a chance to draft Melo, Wade, or CB. And those that don't know CB, I'm talking about Chris Bosh. And you took Darko Milicic because of upside and size. This one pick set Detroit back for dang near a decade. They could have owned the East for years to come. On to Hasheem Thabeet. Most of y'all probably don't even remember this cat, but he was drafted by the Memphis Grizzlies in 2009 under GM Chris Wallace. He thought it made sense to take a 7'3" shot blocker with no offensive skill over James Harden, Steph Curry, and DeMar DeRozan. Thabeet was one of the least NBA-ready players in draft history. He didn't have the hands, the motor, or instincts to even last in the G League, let alone thrive in the NBA. On to Jan Vesely, 2011, drafted by the Washington Wizards under GM Ernie Grunfeld, who was infamous for being just good enough to keep his job and just bad enough to never build a winner. Vesely was a 6'11" project from Europe who looked like he belonged more in the Cirque du Soleil than an NBA rotation. He couldn't shoot, he couldn't pass, he couldn't defend, but he had upside, quote unquote, whatever that meant to them. And moving on from draft picks to some of the most embarrassing trades in NBA history, starting with the Brooklyn Nets in 2013 when they traded for KG and Paul Pierce. This was maybe the worst trade of the modern era at the time. Brooklyn GM Billy King, and I don't even want to get started on Billy King, man. He was either the president or the GM all them years where AI was in his prime in Philly, And for some reason, that man never went and put another star around him to rack chips up with, because they thought they were good enough with just AI. I mean, it makes sense if somebody puts a team on their back and drags you to the finals, but dang, get a man some help. But back on to these embarrassing trades under Billy King with the Brooklyn Nets. GM Billy King gave Boston unprotected picks for two aging Hall of Famers that were past their prime. What did Boston turn those picks into? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Meanwhile, the Nets blew up. Pierce and KG aged overnight, and the Celtics got the last laugh for a decade. Moving on to the Russell Westbrook trade in 2021 with the Lakers. GM Rob Pelinka mortgaged the Lakers' future, trading away Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a.k.a. KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and a first-round draft pick for a washed version of Westbrook who didn't really fit on the roster and had an immovable contract and wrecked spacing, all because Mr. LeBron James advocated for Westbrook to come over to the Lakers. Why did this happen? Not for winning, but for star appeal and jersey sales. And moving on to James Harden getting traded to the Nets at the end of his Houston run. Houston's GM at the time, Raphael Stone, had a chance to get Ben Simmons and build around defense and size before the fallout of Ben Simmons. Instead, he shipped Harden off and got back to the bag of peanuts, aging Victor Oladipo, a carousel of pick swaps, and players who didn't really matter. They went from contention to irrelevance overnight. Now, let's talk about what really drives some of these whack, random decisions. It's not winning. It's not PR. It's optics and dollars. It's GMs choosing business over basketball. Let's get into the first example. Number one, maxing out the wrong stars. GMs often lock up players who sell tickets instead of those who can win playoff games and take your team as far as they can possibly go. They'll give the max to a guy who can get a triple-double but can't shoot, can't lead, or can't defend, or most importantly, can't take games over when it matters. Think about it. How many max contracts go to players who can't perform when it really ultimately counts? Quite a few. Moving on to drafting for marketability. Teams sometimes take players because they appeal to certain fan bases or jersey sales, not because they're the best hoopers out there. You think the Knicks didn't factor that in with business appeal when making some of their baffling lottery picks over the years? My goodness. And then coaching changes for the optics. Sometimes GMs will fire a coach to make it look like they're solving problems, even though they're actually just making the problem worse when possibly the coach wasn't the problem in the first place. Even though they were the ones who built the broken roster, they blame it on the coach and fire the coach. It's smoke and mirrors. When the truth is, their bad decisions are what created the dysfunction in the first place. And moving on to the arrogance of some of these spreadsheet GMs who ain't never been good at the game in their life. There's a new wave of these guys coming in who live in analytics and not in the gym, which it shows on the product on the court. They obsess over PER, EFG percentage, BPM, yet they couldn't tell you who actually has a feel for the game, who actually has the intangibles needed for winning. These are the guys who pass on Jimmy Butler types because they don't jump high enough or shoot well in workouts. Examples: Sam Hinkie and the process, quote unquote, turned tanking into a religion, but it also turned the Sixers into a cautionary tale. Years of losing, only one true franchise player in Embiid over the last handful of years, several years. The other picks like Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, Markelle Fultz, who lost his jumper as soon as he got to the league. Talent evaluation, still mid, if that. And then Rob Babcock, former Raptors GM, traded Vince Carter for Alonzo Mourning, who never reported. Eric Williams and Aaron Williams, basically nothing. He was fired shortly after. David Kahn, the former Timberwolves GM, used back-to-back lottery picks on Ricky Rubio, come on, man, and Johnny Flynn, while Steph Curry was still on the board. How are these guys getting these jobs? Better yet, how do they keep them? Better yet, how do they even get the relationships with the people they know to give them these jobs when the people handing out the jobs know some of these people are incompetent? My goodness, man, it's a whirlwind. It really is a circus. The cost of bad decisions, man. Bad GMs don't just waste money. They waste eras. They waste prime years of superstars. They waste decades of fan loyalty, and yet they rarely have to pay the price. They get to hide behind the curtains. Think about the Sacramento Kings post-2006. Over a decade of dysfunction, bad drafts, laughable trades. Think about the Orlando Magic since Dwight Howard's departure. Constant rebuilds, new GMs hand over hand, new coaches, but the same losing formula time in and year out. Why is that? Because no one up top actually knows what winning basketball looks like. You cannot spreadsheet your way to a title. You cannot sell tickets forever without producing results. The best GMs like Masai Ujiri, Bob Myers, Pat Riley combine analytics with instinct. They use analytics as FIO, and for those that don't know what that means, that stands for information only. They look at the game and a player's skill set and watch how a player performs in certain situations first, and then go to the stats afterwards, not the reverse. They understand the game at a soul level, at a level that goes far beyond numbers. Time for accountability, folks. NBA general managers have become the unsung villains of the league. While players take all the heat, along with the coaches, these guys sit in luxury boxes, botch drafts year after year, waste talent, overpay mediocre players, and still cash 8-figure salaries. Must be nice. They act like they're building rockets when they're really just trying to put 5 guys on the hardwood floor and win a game. It's not that deep. It's not that complicated. It's just hoops. Give those jobs to former players or folks that really know the game, real hoop heads or GMs who've actually watched the game outside of a spreadsheet. Because until we start holding front offices to the same standards we hold players and coaches, we'll keep seeing franchises ruined before they ever have a chance to shine. So next time your favorite team drafts a bust, signs a washed-up vet to a $100 million deal, or trades your young star for future flexibility, quote-unquote, look up top. The problem might not be in the locker room. It might be the guy in the suit. Once again, this is your boy, Nicky P. Thanks for tapping into this episode on Eat, Sleep, Breathe, Hoops. And until the next time, peace.